there's this guy I went to high school with, and I really need to get back in touch with him. I just want to be like random and hit him up, but he was a black dude from projects, you know, surrounded by, of course, black culture, hip hop culture, gangster culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was, I always thought he just kind of got put in the class because it's very odd. Not because the stuff he like generally wanted to associate with acting, you know. And I remember like one time he sitting there said like he like watching dudes get shot in gangster movies. You know, I thought it was weird, but at the same time I like brutal deaths in horror movies, so you know, same thing. So he stuck it out. I remember he was only think he actually acted in plays at school because I know some of his peers weren't about it. But he stuck it out all through 4 years of just taking the acting class. And I've come across his Instagram a few times, and it's saying actor so-and-so, and he has a whole acting Instagram. And I'm like, dude, that's what the fuck I'm talking about. You know, like, because that's why I need to reach out to him, but the fact that this was 11 years ago, and this dude acting in local film, you know, this dude kept to his fucking guns and being from the projects, you know, where a lot of actors don't come from.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's tough, you know, and that is admirable.
I'm like, dude, that's what the fuck I'm talking about, man. Like, that's something I respect. Like, you kept up and, like, you beat the odds to, like, how your peers were, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, it's like, once again, it's you know, it's all those different hurdles that people have to go through that make those stories not as common as they really should be. You know, because it's like for every individual like that that's able to make it and get through that shit, it's like there's, who knows, 20, 30, 40, 50 other motherfuckers whom, you know, maybe they OD'd, maybe they ran into a cop or just a group of local assholes, you know what I'm saying, who wanted to fuck somebody up or, you know, or they just got hit by a car or whatever, you know. You know, there's all kinds of shit. And that's why, you know, and that's why, you know, like I'm the type of person where when I talk about stuff like socialism or tackling capitalism or changing society, it's like, look, I'm not a person who's just like, no, everybody has to come out exactly the same life, thinking the same way and shit, with the same skills and motivations. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, like, we should at least, in order to understand somebody's best but truest potential, you have to give everybody the basic amenities and basic resources and goods that they need to survive. People should not be working just to keep a roof on their head and just to have clean water and good nutritious food and medical care. You know what I'm saying? And some people try to use the excuse that, you know, oh, well, if you work harder, then you deserve, you know, you deserve better care and better humanity. Basically, it's, they put a price point on humanity, and that, no, you only have access to certain parts of humanity if you make a certain amount of money or notoriety and shit. And I'm just like, I fundamentally just don't agree with that shit. You know, and I don't think, and so, and that's why, you know, a lot of people, they try to make it a moral thing. Like, oh, the fact that you have less is representative of your moral ineptitude or showing how lazy you are or just showing that you're not smart. It's like, well, maybe I'm not as smart or as apt at certain skills and things, but why the fuck is that? It's because I live in a neighborhood where the water is fucking tainted and it causes brain damage. You know what I'm saying? Or we don't have no fucking nutritious food. So you know, everybody's kind of lethargic. You can't get any rest because you're fucking traumatized.
Well, Michigan, man.
Or I mean, dude, I mean, it's not even just Flint. It's all across the fucking country. Flint isn't even the first nor the last incident of that. It's just the one that got the most attention.
That's what I'm saying. Like people saw it, just still nothing really came of it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's fucked up because, you know, they tried to sue and do, you know, they tried to handle it politically. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough grassroots momentum to really handle shit hand over fist the way that it would need to be. Because you need somebody in that situation where people are being denied access to clean water, then you got to go in there and crack heads. But because, you know, and this happened under Obama wasn't really about shit. He was with the status quo. He went there and sat in front of all those black people and and pretended to sip a fucking glass of water from the tap and say, oh, everything's good. And just went and just collected, you know, saying more checks from the fucking banks and shit who he bailed out by handing over all the wealth from people who had like bought homes and have been investing in shit for years.
I mean, that also goes to where, like, how a lot of people, I think, like Obama, especially in the black community, because he was a black guy.
Yeah.
You know, Like,
No, absolutely, absolutely. It's that really shallow, superficial identity politics.
where it's like, did he really have your best interest, or was he just a brother?
Yeah, exactly. Some motherfuckers, it's the thing. It's that thing where, yeah, representation is important, but it shouldn't just stop at representation. And a lot of people just kind of, because there are plenty of black people today whom I can't criticize, or not that I can't, I mean, I'll say whatever the fuck I want, but like, you have to expect certain reactions just because
Yeah.
they're like, because they see that, oh, a black man in the highest office in the country and shit. They don't see, oh, somebody whom, uh, in large part doesn't really have that much power, and the power that they do have, they can only move things to a marginal degree.
Yeah.
You know, they don't see that. They see that they see that nope, it's we got a brother up there and he's singing songs and he's, making jokes and looking, this is not to downplay representation. And the fact that when you see a person who is usually considered the most disparaged member of a group in a society all of a sudden seem to retain the highest status of cultural and political reverence, that means something. But that something is fleeting. And a lot of motherfuckers are just willing to hold on to that alone and not dig any deeper, and are offended if you try to dig any deeper. Because do you know Cornel West?
I do not.
He's a black professor. I think he teaches at Harvard or Stanford, probably both. But basically he's like a philosophy dude, and he comes from like a religious but also like Marxist background. He's one of the first black people, public people, who criticized Obama within his first term.
Really?
And yes, because he pointed out all the shit like basically that I'm saying, that like, look, he's just a nice face. He hasn't really done the things that he said he was going to do. He said he was going to do this, this, and that. And he had the opportunity. He had a supermajority in Congress, and he dragged his feet because he just doesn't really give a fuck about doing certain things. And there have been more people, his claims have been validated, but it's just like, a lot of people still don't give a fuck. He caught a lot of heat for that.
You're right.
I mean, he was right though, but once again, a lot of people, they just get caught in the representation. They get caught up in the performance, the theater, and they don't even think, they don't even care to look behind the curtain, So so it's wild. And then once again, it's like people, we live in symbols, and that's never going to go away, which is one of the things why I've come to the grips that I need to start calling myself, like, I need to start presenting my ideas and my values as the American norm. Like, what I believe in, I need to stop framing stuff as like, oh, we have this eternal enemy, we have this, which I do feel that way. We have to give people something to root for. People can only have something to root against so much. But it's a lot easier to have people root for something and just be like, yeah, when I wave this flag, I'm talking about social progressivism. I'm talking about the sanctity of the marriage between Adam and Eve, but also between Adam and Steve. You know what I'm saying? Or even Eve and Jubilee or something, whatever the fuck. But but it's like we have to start taking that and being like, yeah, I'm a proud American, and being a proud American is being able to acknowledge that, yeah, we have certain privileges when it comes to like freedom of speech and shit and space and whatnot, but we've also done some fucked up things, and our quality of life is largely based on exploitation of other people's. So, it's like we have to. It's like, but taking ownership of that, of all these complexities and all these things, and being like, you know what, I'm still proud, and I want to see this country do better. And it all starts with just learning to communicate with people, being open, and being ready to accept that maybe my understanding on an issue is wrong and incomplete.
It goes into, much like how you were saying that, well, maybe how I looked at someone's wrong. There's that much, there's nothing admitting that you are wrong. And I want to say wrong, just the fact that you didn't know. Kind of like when I said about Kaepernick taking a knee, how I was wrong about it. I don't even think I was necessarily wrong. I think it was more skeptical, where it's like I just didn't know of these things at the time. And to whoever is listening, I do want to say this: where much like if you want to see other aspects of the world, mine is a biased view.
Mm-hmm.
Watch foreign horror movies or foreign dramas, because that's my thing. But when you're watching these foreign horror movies, like District 9 in South America, Tigers Not for Children, Here Comes the Devil in Mexico, and even like some Korean movies, is that because the reason why they're horror, they're not showing you the rich areas. They're shot on location again, like, production design is a thing. But these are locations to where they're trying to get as accurate as what they see. Honestly, or either Guillermo del Toro and Pan's Labyrinth and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Want to really see how, I don't want to say how bad the world is, but just what it looks like.
Right. What it looks like from a different perspective from people who have to catch hell every day.
Watch foreign horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you where it's like, damn, dude, like, literally there's children homeless running the streets, but, that's also why, as a filmmaker, when I get older, I want to touch on these things to where, kind of what I see story-wise, but I want to take what I learned from, talking with you, having friends of other ethnicities, other cultures, get something that's not the everyday white American normality, I guess that's kind of what I wanted to end my speech on, where it's like, whoever's listening, if you're still confused or you want to open up your mind, watch foreign horror films.
Yeah, because the thing is that, like, while horror typically doesn't get a lot of praise for its, headiness or being intellectual, it's like a lot of times they do serve as allegories for human behavior and whatnot. And so, like, and I'm, even though I'm somebody who never really indulges in horror too much, more so from the gore factor, I don't really deal with gore and violence and shit too much. I still appreciate the allegories that get made about human society. And, just like you mentioned about, like, watching foreign horror films, that would be good because even though I'm able to be critical of America, there's also criticisms that can be made, from those whom have no attachment and have no, attachment to America, and might open my eyes and be like, oh shit, like, even the way, even in my position as a black man in America, things are fucked up. It's like, look how these other people are getting fucked up, to also sustain certain systems. Because one of the things that, like, I pointed out to my friends and shit is, especially to my black friends, is I was like, look, let's not get a little too much into just black victimhood or just victimhood about our identity, because the thing is, you can't, like sometimes I kind of get tired of black people saying that, like, oh, we get treated the worst or the worst shit. I'm like, we still exist. There's whole indigenous tribes that don't exist anymore, or where there's only like a couple dozen or 100 of them, and they're in bad health and conditions and shit.
Well, there's movies that, like, a movie from the 70s called Cannibal Holocaust. That, like, it's one of those things to where it talks about how they basically find this tribe deep in the rainforest. It's some of these tribes, just leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Like, but then it's like, one thing too is that my two favorite, I love, German, French, and, Latin horror movies. There's my top 3. If you watch not all Latin, but like a lot of deep allegory for Latin horror movies, dude, they almost all deal with the cartel.
Oh, of course. I mean, they have crazy amounts of power, sometimes more than the government.
Yeah, a lot of it is about dealing with police force or cartel, not necessarily like police force directly, but it's like these kids in this one movie found a phone of a politician murdering somebody.
Yeah.
So the face politician just goes to the police. They show the police like, nope, and they drive off.
And one more thing about, like, the whole, like, maybe this is like my inner colonizer coming out, but I'm not a cultural relativist. The reason why I support and we get behind, like, maintaining the practices and customs of, like, an indigenous tribe or a tribe that was, like, or a group of people who were mistreated in society is because of that mistreatment as human beings. It isn't for the rituals themselves, because if we got everybody to be treated equal and shit, one of the first things that I want to do is I want to be like, okay, certain cultural practices I'm not fucking with. Like, I don't give a fuck. This is not everything needs to be left up to democracy. There are certain cultural things where I'm like, no, fuck your culture. We're going to do things this way. This is the way we're doing things.
Like over seasoning your food, I know.
Nope. Yeah.
The reason I say over seasoning the food is one time I'm still trying to season my food correctly, and
what does that mean?
I just like how they say white people can't season their food.
Dumb shit.
Or they don't. It's partially true. I'm learning.
And this is why I say that blackness needs to be approached at many different levels, because you have some people who approach blackness and just like, oh, I need to shut up and just be, serious and just let them speak, or, some people who are just like, oh, it's just all identity politics, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, this connotation that everything black people do is fucking cool. There's nothing cool or interesting about fucking over-seasoning your food and putting it in extra lard and fats and shit. This just gives us more health problems. It's one of the reasons why our diets and shit are part of the leading cause of our death. Heart disease is a big issue. I enjoy fried food, but the thing is that, like, fried food is not unique. Any group of people around the world who has access to fucking cooking hot oil or grease to a high enough temperature like fried foods.
Yeah, it's a cheap out.
It's a cheap out. It's a cheap out. It's exactly. But once again, like, oh, you know, or like, you know, you'll see these videos of black people doing some new dance or whatever, and everybody will act like 20 fucking dances will come out in a week. And everybody will be like, oh, yeah, let's learn every fucking new dance. Not all this shit is fucking cool.
I think, like, the most dumb shit thing I've ever seen in my life.
Most of this shit is dumb. It's just that we get so ignored in other paths of life, that so many motherfuckers gravitate towards, well, we have to get representation in the cultural and media sphere. So they do shit so they over-focus on trying to become relevant in media and entertainment.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, but the thing I hate about that is, it's this, oh, well, a black person is shucking and jiving, or a black person is getting loud and whatever the fuck, so that must, you know, that must mean they're funny, that must mean they're interesting, or they're cool. It's like, no, it fucking doesn't.
Yeah, you're being the dominant voice in the room.
You know? It's like some motherfuckers are just corny and trying too hard and really just not that unique, but they do get a black pass. We have to normalize blackness at different levels, so that way we can avoid this shit.